Hi YouTubers. In previous videos, you've heard me talk about a friend of mine that gave me things and tools in general, tool related things. And he's a guy that I knew since 1984. He recently passed away around Memorial Day, and I wanted to do a tribute video of the things he gave me between 1984 and this year. So I guess I'll start with power tools. One day he showed up at my house and said, "You need a chainsaw sharpener." So there it is. And it turns out he was right. I use files, but this thing really puts a quick edge on, and you can touch up with your files when you're out with the saw. This puts a nice edge on, and it's easy to adjust, and he was right. I needed it. One of the things he used to always say to me is, "You know what you need?" And then he would point at something and he would tell me I need it. And generally, if he told me that, before too long, he would show up with it at my house if I didn't buy it first. And that's what this belt sander is. One of the things about him is that whatever he bought for me, he always made sure I had a lifetime supply of what runs it, or at least a long supply. One day he took me to Harbor Freight in St. Joe. We're sitting in his house and he said, "Come on, let's go." I said, "What?" He said, "We're going to Harbor Freight." So we drive like 30 miles to a Harbor Freight. And we're walking down the grinder aisle and he says, "I want you to pick out a grinder and I'm going to buy it for you." So I pick out the cheapest one, of course. He goes, "No, get a good one." And I said, "Okay, how about this one?" Like the next cheapest one. He goes, "No, no, no." And he picks up the box and it was this one. 8-inch bench grinder, 3/4 horsepower. This thing takes 4 minutes to spin down after you turn it off. And he was right. I needed it. I use it all the time for this or for that. I finally put a brush wheel on it to do some other things, but who knows what I'll do with it in the future. I needed it. He was right. One day we're walking through Harbor Freight and he said, "You know what you need? You need a recip saw." And he decided that with the box in his hand already, that he was going to buy me this one. And you guys can say whatever you want to about it, but it's been a good saw. And it's the 1995 version. You know, it's the cheap one that rotates 6 positions and it cuts. And he gave me a bunch of saw blades for it, and I haven't had any trouble with it. It cuts everything I want to cut. It's a beast as far as I'm concerned. He bought me this grinder, same deal. It's one of those 1995 ones, and a big supply of wheels and discs for it. And then he said that, "You know, you need this better wrench because the one that comes with it is junk." So I had to have that. And he bought that for me. That's the way he was. Wasn't going to buy me stuff that didn't work or stuff that didn't have what it needed so I could use it. This one here is part of what his wife said I could have after he passed. She said they talked for years about what would happen to his tools and that I could have whatever I wanted. And I picked out a few things. Trust me, when you see what I picked out, it doesn't even scratch the surface of what is in his garage. He was into woodworking. I'm not really. He had multiples of almost everything, of whatever kind of tool it was or whatever kind of supplies it was. And I tried to be gracious and use some restraint, but all of this stuff takes a place of honor in my toolbox. He showed up with this one day. He said, "Hey, my wife is going to give me a Milwaukee set with a drill driver in it, and I don't need this, and it's been a good one, and I want you to have it." So now I have it, and it's better than the one I had. The one I had died after he gave me this, and this one has his initials in it. So thanks, Phil. You know, he lives on in my shop. He gave me cutoff wheels to go with my cutoff tool just because we were walking past him. He goes, "You got any of these?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you can always use some more." And he gave me this diamond wheel with a carbide wheel, or not carbide, but a carborundum wheel that goes with a circular saw sharpener. And he gave me that when he gave me the chainsaw sharpener. He said, hey, maybe you can convert that into one of those one day. And obviously, because he's Phil, his intentions were to buy me one eventually. And you can see what's in the bag here. It's the spare parts for that. Now, I don't know if he bought that for me or if he bought it for himself. It's something we talked about in the last conversation we ever had when he was in the hospital, thinking he was coming back. And I told him, I said, hey, I got one of those carts. And he was all happy about that for me. And he told me, I got one of those circular saw blade sharpeners. And I was happy about that for him. And this was in the box, unopened in the garage. And Brenda told me I could have it. It means a lot. And I've already used it. I sharpened the blade with it the other day. Sharpened my brush cutter blade. Worked great. He gave me those gloves. Just grabbing stuff as we walk through Harbor Freight. Here, you need some of these, need some of these. Gave me this light one time out of his stuff. I'm not sure why he thought I needed it, but he's right. He gave me this pocket tool at a family reunion. Gave me these diamond jeweler files. I've used those a ton of times. Gave me that reamer. Gave me these carbide tips. These were tips that he had, bits I should say, that he had in his stuff that were unopened and unused, and I brought them because he was always telling me I needed those too, so he's probably right about that. I'll probably use them. And he gave me this ratchet about 30 years ago. And what's interesting is that this tool right here, notice the size of the fitting. The last conversation we had in my garage included a conversation about how I said to him, you know what you need? You need these fittings. And he went right out and got them, obviously, because all his air tools had those on it when we were going through his things, looking in the garage. And he gave me this, and I put that fitting on it. Gave me these these diagonal cutters. Last time we were in Harbor Freight, he bought me that, which I've used so much it's ridiculous. And he bought me those, and I've used those a lot. He told me I needed to get this. And I said, well, maybe I will sooner or later. He had this in his stuff, and because he told me I needed it, I went ahead and added that to the things that I brought home. He gave me these picks. This is my first pick set ever. He gave me this rivet gun. He gave me that hacksaw. He didn't give me this seal puller, but the reason I put it out here is because I forgot what it was. I bought it decades ago to pull a seal on something. I don't remember what. I actually sent him a picture of it and said, what is this? And he said, it's a seal puller. A funny Phil story. He knew what everything was. He had 50 years of industrial mechanic experience, so he knew what to pick out of Harbor Freight that was any good. He helped me change the tires on my motorcycle. I had these that I had bought someplace, I don't know. And after that, the next time I saw him, he showed up with these. He said, you need better tire irons. He was all looking around my shop, and he'd go, hey, you need this, you need that, you know, the right tool for the job. And he would say to me, it helps me when you have the right tools, because if I'm helping you, I can be a better help if you have the right tools. So that's why I buy your tools. I said, okay. Every time we go to Harbor Freight, I knew I couldn't talk him out of anything. He had this in that box, and his wife's brother, which is my wife's cousin, told me that if I ever had a saw like this, I would never look back at my old circular saw, and they decided that I should have it too. So now I have it. Almost everything on this magnet he gave me. He bought the punch and chisel set, showed up at a family reunion with that. The file set, he gave me that. The thread files, he gave me those. Those old gray things, those are things I had accumulated over the years, and they're up there. I still use them off and on, but he really made sure I had a lot of things that he was right. I needed better ones, and now I have them. You just got me stuff that in his opinion, I needed. He gave me those clamps right there, which are better than the ones that you could buy by accident at Harbor Freight. He knew which ones were the good ones. Those are the good ones. And I guess that's about it. R.I.P. Phil. Thanks for watching, guys.